Hey friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. If you are new, then hello, my name is Glenn, this is Well I Never, and here I talk about living with visual impairment because I have aniridia and nystagmus, and my life in London, so I go out to theatres and museums quite a lot and go out for socialising, walks, things like that. And I talk about the other entertainment I enjoy in general, like comedy, drama, music, that kind of thing. So there's plenty for you to check out here and on my blog. But this is a special video because I have been very kindly given complimentary tickets to go and see a new theatre show that's premiering this weekend as part of the Bloomsbury Festival called States of Mind, and it has been put on by a company called Extant, who are the leading company in the UK for visually impaired performers and creative artists. So the director is visually impaired, the stars are visually impaired, there's integrated audio description into the performance as well. And I've seen one of their shows in the past called Flight Paths, which is very good. But this new show is called States of Mind. It's taking place on Saturday the 16th of October at 8:30 p.m, lasts about 90 minutes. And it's based on a Shakespeare poem, the very first published work he ever did. And that was written during the plague, in fact. So it's very apt that this new dramatisation has been written during the COVID pandemic. And at the time of recording, there is still time to book tickets to see it either in person or to live stream it online. So I do encourage you to check that out. The link will be in the description below. But not only was I offered complimentary tickets to go and see the show, very, very kindly, thank you very much for that, I was also given the opportunity to pose some questions to the people involved, and I've had some answers back. So thank you very much to writer and director Christopher Hunter and to actor Gillian Dean, both of whom gave up some very precious time while they were very busy preparing for the production. It's greatly appreciated and their answers are very insightful. They're both in my blog, and I'll put a link to that post in the description below, but also Gillian Dean supplied her answers as a voice note. So I thought I would post that here as well so you can hear what she has to say, because she gives a great insight into her career in the industry and the production and so on. So thank you very much to Gillian for recording this. And yeah, I'm just going to play it. I hope you find it interesting, and do go and check out the play States of Mind at the RADA Studios this weekend if you can. So yeah, here's Gillian.
Hello, so here are some answers to the Well I Never e-interview questions. I hope they give you a bit of an idea about my career and this play and other interesting things. My name is Gillian Dean, and I have Stargardt's macular dystrophy is my visual impairment, which is essentially damage to my macula. So the centre of my vision is where the damage is mainly located. My peripheral vision is pretty good though. So I don't use a guide cane or a guide dog. I'm able to still sort of move around pretty independently, but obviously I am registered as severely sight impaired, and that comes with quite a lot of challenges in life and in work. I've been acting professionally since 2009, but I have been acting since young childhood. So I remember being in my school Christmas play when I was about 4. I think that's the first documented footage of me being in a play. And I've carried on acting throughout. I did drama at GCSE. I joined community theatre groups and amateur dramatics groups. I also did A-level performing art, and I did a degree in contemporary theatre at De Montfort University. After I graduated, I actually did about 8 years of working in arts management, front of house in theatres. So I worked in and around the arts and theatre industry, but not as a performer professionally, though I was still acting in community theatre at the time. I really don't remember what inspired me to get started. I really, really loved acting. I started doing it, as I say, in that school play, and I just really enjoyed it. As time has worn on, I have not lost that love of doing it. It's still one of my favourite things to be doing. Hopefully I'm better at it now than I was then. It is one of the things I remember thinking was that when I was younger, sort of pre-teens, I would be watching TV shows or plays, and I would sort of look at people, and there would be some people that I'd look at and go, ooh, I can't see you acting. Like, you're so good, I can't see you acting. You're so natural. And I just really, really wanted to be able to do that. I wanted to really be able to pretend to be someone else. And I mean, this is something I've done my whole life as well, is that I do often wander around muttering to myself, and I'm basically having little daydreams and creating dialogue to go with them. So I think, when you have got the acting bug, it is something that you pretty much just do on a daily basis. But I'm not a person who kind of, leaps around performing for my family and making them clap or anything. But I do think that, an interest in language and in people does mean that while you're going about your day, you do sort of look at other people and you listen to other people's conversations and you get interested in them in a way that possibly other people don't. Obviously, I don't know because I've been doing this my whole life. But you certainly pay attention to other people and think, oh, I wonder what's happened to make you say that, or I wonder why that person has just done that and then looked frustrated. And being an actor, I do think you start filling in the gaps in your head. You start creating stories and creating characters based on just, your everyday life. So I think that is one way that being an actor definitely impacts on my daily life. In terms of preparing for roles, I'm actually very, very fortunate that as my eyesight has deteriorated, because mine is a degenerative condition, as my eyesight has got worse over the years, my brain has done this wonderful thing without me actually getting involved, in that it started to compensate for my deterioration of vision by making my memory for lines really good. I can learn script very, very quickly these days. Which is incredibly beneficial. However, I can do that, but it does still take time. It still takes effort. And obviously, because I am still reading, I use an iPad and I have the text zoomed in, enormously. So there's only about 4 lines of text on the entire screen and I have to scroll from side to side. So that takes a very long time. It can be quite tiring to do. And it does still take me time to memorize text. Some of the challenges I face in the industry are that very often, even when people know that they are casting me because they are wanting to cast a visually impaired actor, they very often still don't really give you enough preparation time. So, I still get things come through from my agent saying, oh, would you like to go up for this role? I say yes. And then she's like, great. They've sent the script, but the audition is in 2 days' time and they want you to have, read the whole play and picked 2 scenes to audition with. I am represented by an agent who only represents disabled artists. It's Louise Dyson at Visible People, and that's Visable People, Visable. I'm represented by her, and she really is fantastic at trying to fight access corners. So she will always come back to people saying, that is not enough time, this is what Gillian needs from you, and she will do everything she can to get me as much time and as many accessible resources as possible. But I think the industry as a whole is still not geared towards giving disabled people time enough to build in their needs. So yes, that's a long-winded way of saying that I prepare for a role by reading the lines, and I try to turn up with my lines memorized before the first day of rehearsal if I have the opportunity to do so, simply because it takes a lot of stress off me, because I simply cannot be reading a script and rehearsing with other actors because I'm using an iPad and I have to zoom and scroll. Both my hands are busy and I have to hold the thing so close to my face that my face is completely unavailable to the other actors. So basically, I'm not engaging with them, I'm not interacting with them, I'm literally staring at an iPad. So that's not a very workable way to rehearse. So I try to be off book as soon as possible when I'm going into a new project. With regard to sort of other access technology or technology in general, I think the world has definitely become more accessible to me with the sort of improvement of smart technology like tablets and smartphones. I do know that there are lots of apps that you can use that are specifically designed for actors to help them learn lines. I don't use any of them myself, but that's only because I haven't actually tried them yet. They might be really, really useful. This is one of the other things I love about when I work with other visually impaired actors, is that apart from getting to work with new people or work with people that have a slightly more developed understanding of what it might be like to be doing the job in the way we're doing it. So, visually impaired people obviously have very different situations and access the world differently and have very different access needs. But it's really, really lovely not to be the blindest person in the room. And it's also really lovely that we often share tips and advice and, oh, you should look at this app or you should try this screen reading software. That's really, really nice as well. So that's a lovely thing I enjoy about working with other actors who are also visually impaired. In terms of states of mind, what attracted me to this piece, to be completely honest, I got a phone call from Maria saying there's this thing happening. It's a reworking of Venus and Adonis set as a play rather than a poem. And I just thought, well, well, that sounds interesting. I wonder how you do that. And it was quite a short lead time, because I believe I got involved. Well, I was approached because I think another actor who was going to be involved essentially was unavailable at quite short notice. So I was approached, and I'm very glad to have been so. So I was sent the script, and I had a read through it, and I did sort of think, oh, this is a really interesting way of reframing this poem, and I was interested in how we would explore that. And the premise of the piece is, so the poem is about sort of love and lust and almost sort of sexual obsession, which does sort of transmute into genuine emotional love, but only shortly before the very tragic end of the poem. This piece has been reframed so that it takes place in a sort of clinical medical setting, in which we certainly have a young male character who is, we can assume that he is the survivor of a sexual assault. And we have a woman who is certainly presenting herself as some sort of clinician, or certainly authoritative medical presence, and she is interviewing him, or she's treating him. As the play unfolds, it becomes less clear what their respective roles are and what their respective relationship is to each other. And they are also both taken through a journey in which they are forced to confront their own respective past traumas and try to find a path through them. Occasionally they are supporting one another, but there is certainly an aspect of both characters sort of trying to use the other one's history against them. So there's a certain amount of power play throughout the whole course of the story. And it's an investigation into what love is from different people's perspectives, and what lust is from different people's perspectives, and where they might overlap or flip over. And it's very much about the sort of psychology of how you perceive sexual desire and love, and the ways in which those impulses can be used as something aggressive. I hope that gives you some sort of idea. In terms of what it's like to play the woman, the character I play is called the woman, the other character is called the boy. They don't have names beyond that. It's very enjoyable to play her because I don't like her. I think that whilst a lot of her behaviour is coming from a traumatic past event, and so she is a very psychologically fragile person, the way in which this manifests is very much that of sort of power play and abuse. So whilst I can understand her situation, I can't feel huge amounts of sympathy for her. And it's always interesting to play somebody that is nothing like you, that follows very different impulses from me as an actor. It's really interesting to explore someone who does things just completely differently and sees the world completely differently to me. That's always an interesting challenge, and really rewarding when you suddenly get those moments where you're like, oh God, I understand why she's doing this. That's always a really lovely moment when you suddenly make a connection with your character, even if the connection is, I wholeheartedly disagree, but I suddenly understand why you're doing this. Roles I have played in the past, I suppose the most high-profile roles I've played are, I played a character called Isabel Riley in ITV Drama's Home Fires, which was on ITV primetime for 2 series, which was a really lovely job. It wasn't I was part of the main cast. It wasn't a particularly sizable role, but I did get to work with some really, really amazing British actors. And they were lovely, and we're actually still in touch now. We actually still have a WhatsApp group, and we still occasionally meet up for dinner and wine. So, that was one of the most fun experiences, I think. I also did a Halloween episode of BBC Drama's Doctors, it was my very first TV role, and I got it actually not long after I started acting professionally. So that was a real learning curve for me, because I went from having been exclusively a theatre performer, I suddenly got my first TV job and was like, oh, I don't know how to do this. And it was only 2 days filming, but the cast and the crew were really lovely, and I felt like I came away from there with at least a vague understanding of how to act for TV, how it's different, what different terminology means in TV land rather than theatre land. One of my very favourite roles was we did a touring, an open air promenade musical inclusive version of Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. And that was a tour of Wales, and we performed, as I say, it was an open air thing, so we were performing in ruined abbeys and national parks and the botanical gardens and in school grounds. So it was really interesting and it was an inclusive piece, so there was me and two other disabled actors amongst the cast, each of us having different disabilities. So it was really interesting to sort of work out how to, every day basically restage a piece so that it made sense in that place. And because it was promenade, it meant that throughout the play we were moving from site to site for different scenes. So it was a very sort of physical experience. I played Quince and Helena. And it was just tons of fun. We were really hitting the comedy, and that's always fun. And we were allowed to interact with the audience, much as people would have in, Shakespearean times performing Shakespeare comedies. They would have seen what jokes were going down well and then had a bit more of a laugh with the audience. So, it was really fun to have that freedom to really play with people. And we would sit down next to them on their picnic blankets and eat their crisps while the other actors were doing stuff. It was really fun. So I think that was a particular favourite of mine, was that. Regarding advice for other visually impaired people who are aspiring to become actors or performers, I would say it's a little tricky because, everybody's route into the industry is usually very different. I don't think you'll ever speak to two actors who have got the same journey into how they became a professional actor. I would say pursue your interests, even if they're not acting, because the more things you know how to do, include, especially if those are performative, such as playing musical instruments, singing, dancing, but also, other things like, if you are a circus performer, or if you can do gymnastics, or, if you have other skills as well, don't give up on them in order to take up acting, because, one day there might be that thing where they're like, oh, do you know what we need? We need a unicyclist who speaks fluent Italian and is visually impaired. And if you're that one person, that job is yours. So I would definitely say, you don't have to be everything to everybody, but I would say make sure that you have a well-rounded sort of life, as well as just, an acting aspiration. Get involved in as much sort of theatre as you can. I would say that from every job I've ever done, I have learned something useful, even if what I've learned is I don't ever want to be involved in something like that again, or if I've learned that actually I've taken on too much and I can't do this. Those are not necessarily positive lessons emotionally, but they are useful so that as you go forth, you do know more about yourself as a performer. And get as good as you can. Engage with classes, engage with workshops, do as much sort of, get as skilled as possible so that when those opportunities come around, you're in the best possible position to take them. For example, I've always called myself a singer, and I like singing, and I'm a relatively good singer. I'm certainly not a technically competent singer in the sense that I can't really read music. Even if I could see it, I can't really read it. I can't sing from a score without having heard it before, but I can sing quite well and I have quite good voice control. But in the last 2 years, I realised that I only ever went and had singing lessons I have a wonderful singing teacher who's just incredibly knowledgeable and a really good teacher, and I only ever went to see him when I had an audition coming up, and I'd turn up in a panic going, oh my God, I need to find a song and learn how to do it really well by next Tuesday. Whereas what I've been doing for the last 2 years is going to have a singing lesson every fortnight, regardless of whether I've got an audition coming up, so that the next time a singing audition came up, my voice was in really good repair. I had this whole repertoire of songs that we'd built up over the previous year to pick from, and I was just in a much better place to go for it. So be as skilled and as prepared as you can be. In terms of getting those roles, I can't help with that, I'm afraid. I have an agent who puts me up for stuff, and that is where I get most of my work from. Having been in shows with people, then, it's really, I'm no good at networking as an actual sort of focused activity, but I am very good at chatting to people, and staying in touch with people who I've liked, actually. I'm not very good at sort of networking in that cynical way of, hooking onto people I think will be useful to me. But when you work with people, I mean, this is true anyway, but it's always so useful to be professional and approachable and friendly, because not only does it make your life and everybody else's life that you're working with easier, but it does mean you're more likely to make contacts that are going to last, so that they might think, they might go off and become the next sort of amazing director at the RSC or something, and they might think, oh, wait a minute, I worked with Gillian a few years ago, I bet she'd be good for this role. So making those contacts where you have the opportunity is really good. It's worth remembering that when you're first starting out, getting footage for a show reel together is really useful, because most casting directors want to be able to see a show reel, by which I mean a series of clips of footage of you performing, sort of edited together into a sort of 1 or 2 minute long video, because casting directors want to be able to just look at something where they get a really quick, really clear idea of what you sound like, what you move like, what you look like, what kinds of roles you might have played. It should only be sort of 1 to 2 minutes long, because no casting director is going to watch for more than about a minute. So keep it snappy, keep it effective. It's definitely worth trying to get good quality footage. So if you have access to, I don't know if there's a film school or a university that does a film course, it's useful getting in touch with them and seeing if their students need actors for their films, because that way you can start gathering, comparatively high quality footage. And if you do get any sort of TV or film work, absolutely make sure that you can get hold of the footage and add it to your show reel. Having a spotlight page, I think, is a fairly industry standard thing. So it does cost money. It's got an annual fee of I think it's about £170, but I think, I definitely get a discount because I'm a disabled actor, and I think that makes it about £150 a year. And it's an online CV platform where you can post all of your credits and all of your skills and all the accents you can do and who your agent is. So it's a place where you have all your details about who you are as a performer and what you can do, and a range of photos, and it's where you'd post your show reel and your voice reel and any other sort of bits of footage that you think show you in a good light. And that is a place that casting directors will go to find you. It's also a thing that most agents want you to have if they're going to represent you, because they want to make it as easy as possible for casting directors to cast you. So yeah, getting some professional headshots taken is a part of that. Make sure that you've got good quality photos. There's lots of advice out there about what a professional headshot should be. So I definitely find out things like that, because those are the more sort of practical things that you need to have in place, so that when people look at you, they see you presenting a professional profile rather than an amateur one. And that will occasionally make the difference between people glancing at your profile and going, oh, no, not them, and actually taking a look at you. So I'd say that's always a good thing to do, is to try and make sure that everything you're putting out there looks as professional and industry standard as possible. With regard to disabled actors and playing disabled roles and non-disabled roles, I don't ever think able-bodied actors should be playing disabled actors these days. I don't think that's appropriate. A friend of mine once sort of gave me a sort of rule of thumb to sort of guide the sort of thought process around this, which is to turn it into a race issue. That if an able-bodied actor was approached for a role and someone said, would you play this role? Yes, I'd love to. Would you be happy to black up for it? If that actor were to say yes, then, I'd question their moral choice. But I think most actors, if approached with that question in this day and age, they would say, absolutely not, I would not be comfortable doing that. In terms of cripping up, which is a term that, certainly we disabled actors in the industry tend to use, lots of able-bodied actors will still say, yeah, I'm absolutely happy. In fact, I think it would be really rewarding and challenging to learn how to be blind for a month, or how to, be a wheelchair user or something. Lots of able-bodied actors do still seem to be comfortable cripping up, and personally, I don't think that should be happening. There is a slightly sticky ground, however, which I am morally conflicted on myself, which is that most of my film and TV roles, I have played a character who is much blinder than I am, much more blind, because those are the roles. And when I've turned up at the audition, I've been very clear about what my visual impairment is. I've asked them if they want me to be more blind. And usually at audition stage, people go, oh, no, we haven't really confirmed what the character's disability is. Yeah, it might change. So just do it with your level of sight and, you know, then that will be fine. So at the audition stage, almost invariable, I think there's only been one audition I've done where they're like, no, they are completely sightless. Then most auditions I've had, they have been like, oh, no, it's fine. But then I've been offered the role, and then when I've turned up to do the role, there's been a certain amount of, okay, great, so we're just going to need you to feel this person's face. We're just going to need you to be guided into this room. So you don't know there's someone standing next to you, at which point you're kind of like, so this is a completely blind character then, and I am playing the character's disability rather than my own. I'm genuinely morally conflicted by that, because I would rather a visually impaired actor was playing a visually impaired role than an able-bodied actor. But I know there are lots of visually impaired actors who don't feel comfortable playing disabilities that are more pronounced than their own, because they consider that to be the same thing as cripping up. So yeah, it's a moral quandary. I'm not actually sure I'm comfortable with it, and I know I have taken jobs that I certainly have cripped up for, and yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I have to say I think it's a bit of a grey area, and it's something that I need to think more about. I haven't had that problem so much in theatre. I have to say a lot of theatre roles I've been approached with have not required me to be differently disabled than I am. But that's not across the board true. I have definitely had auditions for and been cast in theatre roles where I am playing a more blind person than myself. I certainly think disabled actors should be put up for any role if there is no good reason why that role cannot be a character who happens to be disabled. I think if you have a character who absolutely has to be non-disabled, then fine. I think if you can justify that choice. But I think any other role, disabled actors should be allowed to audition for and should be being seriously considered for if they are the right actor for the job, regardless of whether they are disabled or not. Because if a role doesn't specifically require someone to be able-bodied or disabled, then it should be open to absolutely everybody to audition for, including disabled actors. I think we are approaching a place in history where that is happening more for other sort of members of underrepresented groups. I think it is more common, but still not common enough for you to see a character who is a person of colour playing a role of, I don't know, a butcher or a police officer or a judge or, well, whoever, and for their race not to be an issue. It's not mentioned, it's not referred to, it's not relevant that character is being played by an actor of colour. We are not at a period of history where that's the same for disabled actors, I think. Usually when you see a disabled actor in something, there's usually been a reason for them to be cast. There's usually a sort of focus on the disability rather than the actor. That is happening less and less, but it's still very, very much the overriding norm. So yeah, I think that's something that needs to change in the industry. I'm just about done, I think. I'm just going to answer the question about goals and things coming up in the future. Immediately after States of Mind, I am going to be working as an understudy at the Royal National Theatre in the upcoming production of Manor, where I'm understudying an actor called Amy Forrest for the role of Ruth Getz. I'm very excited. It's my first time working with the National, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. In terms of dream roles, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would love to get a decent, meaty comedy role, either on stage or sort of on TV. That would be really great. I'm a huge fan of, like, I always like a kind of slightly horror-based sort of series thing. Like, I'm a big fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Supernatural. I would absolutely love to get a main cast part in something like that. Or, I mean, Amazon Originals, The Boys is my favourite TV show at the moment, so getting a role in that would just be absolutely incredible. So, yeah, I'd love to say something more highbrow as an aspiration, but actually those are probably it. I'd absolutely love that. Oh, and unfortunately they're not making them anymore, but I desperately wanted to be in the Agatha Christie's Marple, the sort of reboot of the Miss Marple series. I would have loved to be in one of those, but unfortunately I think they've all finished now. Okay, I hope that's useful to you, and I hope it was clear. And thank you very much for your interest. Bye-bye.
And there you have it. Thank you very much again to Gillian Dean for giving up so much of her busy time to record such interesting and insightful answers for me. They were genuinely very interesting to listen to, so I greatly appreciate the time that she's taken to do that. And best of luck to her and her co-star Robin Paley-York, and to writer and director Christopher Hunter. Thank you for your answers as well. Hope the play goes very well on Saturday for you and everyone else involved with it. And to everyone else watching this, please do grab a ticket if you can, either to see it in person or to watch it online. It looks set to be very interesting. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for watching that. I hope you found that interesting. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe as per usual, and I will see you for another video very soon. Bye.